In the last recording, we talked about how to build these tow charts. We brought the tasks in from the IOP, just copied them, shifted them around a little bit. Then we added a clear form and exit program, which is detail that we know now that we didn't know then because it's on our screen layout. Those two buttons that we have to deal with. We then figured out how or what are we going to do to get these meters. We're going to use text meters, a text box. And we kind of figured out that we're going to use a text box in the screen layout. We need to give it a name here. Again, if when you did the screen layout, you named it right away, make sure you use the same name here, just transfer it over. We're going to call the button calculate. We're going to call the button clear, button exit, button calculate. These calculations are done on calculate. The display is done on calculate. When we clear the form, the button causes it to happen, but these two objects are going to be affected by it. So these are kind of clues to what we have to do. And then we figured out that we're always going to respond to the click event. No double clicks, no right clicks, no drag, just click events. Same thing in the bowling program. Then we took this and said, all right, for every one of the event handlers that I need to respond to, I now need to figure out the details. So I split the window, I did a window, new window, and then moved them around so that I could see two windows at once. That was command arrow. In Windows, it's Windows arrow. And now I can put my tow chart over here and my pseudocode over here because I kind of need to see both at the same time. For your Unit 3 and 4 programs, everything's going to be button calc, button clear, button exit. That's all we're going to have. If you add more to it because you're doing some cool stuff, hope you add it to the design. If you need help figuring out how to put it in the design, ask me, I'll help you. All right, but what we saw here is that button calculate click needs to calculate the feet. So we did that. Button calculate click needs to calculate the yards. We did that. And it needs to display. We did that. We also included, I gotta quit pointing to the screen, doesn't help in the recording. We also included a little bit of overhead. Before we can start doing calculations, we have to transfer what the user gave us from that text box into a variable. Remember, we do all our processing using variables. So I transferred this to a variable, used the variable multiplied by 3.281 that my buddy told me is the magic conversion formula, saved it in another variable called feet. Used the feet variable, divided it by 3, saved it in another variable called yards, and then displayed that result. So all your calculations are done using variables. In our bowling program, when we did our pseudocode, we had 3, 4, 5 inputs. We had to transfer them all before we could do our math. Now I need to check something here real quick. Because this occurred to me in the other class, I want to make sure I hit the recording. If not, at least I can make up for it here. I'm opening up the bowling design. And for some reason, I'm not getting any tabs. Where'd my tabs go? There we go. In the pseudocode, we didn't bring in the bowler's name because we don't need it for calculations. When I'm doing my processing, if I don't need it, there's no reason to transfer it in. If you're not sure ahead of time, go ahead and transfer it, type that in there, and then when you do your calculations, if you realize you don't need it, get rid of it. Lots of reasons. You're going to request memory from your computer's operating system to hold that person's name. You don't need that memory. Why are you wasting Windows memory by holding that person's name and then not doing anything with it? Okay. Plus, it takes a couple billionths of a second to do that. And who knows how many seconds to get Windows to actually give you the memory. Right? So if you don't need an input that the user's giving you, like the bowler name here, you don't transfer it. A couple of people have already taken that back a couple levels in the design. That's not right. In your gas mileage program that you're working on for tomorrow, a couple people went into the IOP and they said, I don't need the bowler name, so they took it out here. That's too early. You don't know that yet. You still got to put it on the screen, right? Even though we're not using it for calculations, you might wonder why. Might take a screen snapshot. Might be using it in a later edition of this. Okay. Even though we're not using it, we still got to put it on the form because the user said they wanted it. And then in the tow chart, we're going to transfer that so that we give a name to that object. It's not until part 4 that you can say, I don't need the boulder name, so I'm not going to transfer that in. Transfer everything else, do the math using pseudocode. Where's all my other stuff here? Is that one, that one, that one. So here's our meters to yards. We're going to expand on this today. We also did button clear. Remember, there's 2 ways that you can clear a label or a text box, either one. You clear by using the word clear, or you clear by putting an empty string in that object. That works for everything except date pickers. Date pickers cannot be cleared, so you have to set them to some date. And there's all kinds of options here. We chose today. Sometimes you just leave the date alone. In my bowling program, for instance, that's what this is. If the secretary just entered Nathan's bowling, and he changed the date to 3 days ago, and he hits save, and off it goes to the database, or he prints it, and now he's got to use Dustin's. When do you think Dustin bowled? On the same date. So maybe we don't clear it, we just leave it and let him use the date over and over and over again. It's another option. Or we could set it 3 days in the past, or 7 days in the future, or whatever we need it to be. Today is a pretty good place to start. If I'm tracking a customer's order and that customer calls me on the phone and it wants to know what's the order date, it's today. Just now. It's a very common one. But it doesn't have to be today. It can be other things. But also remember, you can't wipe out a date picker at all. Also remember, even though the next bowling date is a date, we're not displaying it in a date picker. We're displaying it in a label I can tell because of the prefix. And so I can wipe that out. I just can't wipe out DTPs, date pickers. Be consistent, either clear or empty string, not both. Button exit's always done for you, you don't have to worry about it. Questions left over from that? And today I'm going to kind of back up in the notes because of the order of the notes. We've already done pseudocode, which is a little lower. Today we're going to talk about flowcharts. When I talked about pseudocode last time, I mentioned to you that flowcharts and pseudocode serve the same purpose. They allow us to document an algorithm. An algorithm is a set of steps. In my meters to yards program, here's a set of steps that I have to follow. I can do that in pseudocode. We did. An alternative is flowcharts. Flowcharts allow you to create a picture of the logic. Some people prefer flowcharts, some people prefer pseudocode. Most students prefer pseudocode because it's easier. But flowcharts, many supervisors particularly like them because they're pictorial representation, usually without a whole lot of technical gibberish that they don't understand. Most anybody can read a flowchart. But they do the same thing. They diagram that algorithm. So once you've got one of them, the other ought to be pretty easy to do. To do flowcharting, we're going to use a program called Visio. If you have another, I understand there's a program in LibreOffice, but you don't need it. Visio is already installed in your virtual machine, because I installed it. And if it asks you to, it'll be interesting to see how this works out. If it asks you to activate it, just do it. It's already got a key in it. It'll be interesting to see if it'll let 100 of you activate it with all the same keys. We'll see. If we have trouble, we might have to try something else. But real quick, just as a pause here, I'm going to LibreOffice, and supposedly there's a drawing program in here. And it's saying you're already in LibreOffice. Oh, come on. File, new, drawing. I think this drawing is not really flowcharting, but I could be wrong. Here's some shapes. I haven't played with this. I should probably play with it offline someplace. But I don't know that this is going to be able to do the same thing. There's line styles. I'll play with it and see how it works. I want to add something. Let me add something. Shadows. Arrange. Interesting. Not making it real easy for me to add boxes. Add lines. Arrows. Styles. Anybody see it? Is it just me? I don't see it. Maybe it's this one. Effects. Insert, maybe. Slide, duplicate the slide, comment, image, table, object, no, floating frame. That's bizarre. What are you? Chart, hyperlink, navigator. What I want to do is add a box. It's not making it real easy for me. And then if I wanted to save this, is there an option to save in Visio format? No. So even if there is something in LibreOffice, it's going to be a little cumbersome. I'm going to recommend that you use Visio. If you go to the Start menu, I already see Visio here, but you might have to go to All Programs, Microsoft Office 2013, and find Visio 2013 there. Yes? Launch it. What Visio allows you to do is create fairly complex diagrams, including a basic flowchart. That's all we're ever going to use it for in this class is a basic flowchart. If you start with a basic diagram, you'll get something a little bit different. I don't recommend that. Start with a basic flowchart. Are you sure? Yes, US units. We're not doing the metrics thing. And here's a nice blank document. And on the left-hand side, this is what I was looking for in LibreOffice, are a bunch of shapes. In my notes, I explain the shapes that we're going to use in our flowcharting. There aren't too many of them. The first shape we're going to use is called terminal. It's simply used to document the beginning and the end of a flowchart. So you use a terminal at the beginning with the name of the event handler in it. And then you just have another one that looks just like it at the end. So let's go into our diagram here, and I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. You can leave yours whatever size you need to make it. I'm going to add a terminal. Here it is. Before I do this, by the way, I've gotten rid of my toolbar. If you double click one of these tabs, it permanently hides the toolbar, the ribbon, unless you click, and then it appears and it disappears. Because I have so little screen space in my recording screen, I have hidden them. But before we start, let's go home. Take that back. Go to Design. And I'm going to pick a different design. These colored designs make things kind of hard to read. It's up to you. I think they're hard for you to read up there on the screen. So I'm just going to use this black and white design. You can use any design you want. It's just like Microsoft Word and Excel. There's color schemes and all. Knock yourself out. I'm fine with them. But I'm going to shift here to the simple design, and notice all my shapes are now just outlines in white. You can change styles after you're done. Build it in all white and then go back and change all the styles if you wish. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Here's my terminal symbol. I want to drag a terminal symbol onto the form. You can't double click here like you can Visual Studio. You can't do any of that stuff. You have to drag them. Once you've got the shape on your form, you can immediately start typing. We're supposed to have the name of the event handler in here. btn calculate underscore click, or just a space click. I'll take that as well. And again, I'm just going to zoom in so that you can see it better. If you haven't installed Visio at home, you're going to need it. Okay. I did assign part 2, right, of the Unit 3 gas estimate program. Just one? One's due tomorrow, right? The 10 o'clock class, I must have forgot to tell you, 10 o'clock class decided that part 2 is due at 2 o'clock. Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So let's say Tuesday, shall we? Tuesday.
You also told us it was due Tuesday.
I did. So the rest of you are asleep except for Isaac. That's fine. Part 2 is due Tuesday. My recommendation is that you wait until I get you your part 1 back. I'm grading them as fast as I can as they're coming in, but right now I'm about 10 behind because I also promised my web programming class that I would do some stuff for them right away. Saturday at the latest you'll get it if you turn it in the next couple. Well, you're turning it in before Friday, part 1. You'll get it back before Saturday. That'll give you time to update it, get your points back before you move on too deep into part 2. Part 2 is toe chart, pseudocode. Due Tuesday. It's all on my website now. Part 3, you guys get to decide. How about Friday? A week from Friday. Part 2 is due Tuesday. That gives you 3 more days to do. Part 3 is going to be this flowcharting stuff and the test plan. And we're going to cover it all today. Tuesday will be lab. I think Friday's good. So part 2 on Tuesday. Part 3 on Friday the 25th. That's when they're due. Okay, back to this. Got sidetracked. Here's a terminal for the beginning. You put the event handler name in there. I'm just going to whip this up here real quick. Here's my, here's my meters to yards. Oh, look, it's the same. Flowcharts and pseudocode are going to be nearly identical. I'm going to need an end terminal, so I don't forget. I'm going to drag that over here and type end in there. I zoomed in, by the way, by control scrolling. So if you want to make yours bigger like mine, just control scroll. And now, back to my notes. That's the terminal. That's all they're used for, the beginning and the end. Then there are different shape boxes for different stuff, and this is where it gets complicated. Not really. If you're doing processing, use a square box. If you're doing input or output, that's what they used to be called. If you're doing output, use a parallelogram. And those two symbols are over here. There's the rectangle, parallelograms here someplace. There it is. All right. Here's how I think you should determine it. Are you changing the appearance of the screen? If you're changing the appearance of the screen, use a parallelogram. If all you're doing is changing what's in memory, use a rectangle. So if the user's vision of the program is going to change, use a parallelogram. Otherwise, use a rectangle. Okay, we've already figured out the logic, so I'm going back to my design here. And now it says the next thing I'm supposed to do is take what's in the text box and copy it to meters. Is that changing the screen? No. It's copying what's in the text box. The user's not going to see this happen. It's copying what's in the text box into memory. So we're going to use a rectangle for that because the screen is not changing. If the screen is changing, use a parallelogram. I thought this was input. Oh no, the user's done inputting. They were inputting a long time ago. They've hit the calculate button already. So this is not input. This is us taking their inputs and doing something with it. That's why it's going into a rectangle. You can shrink and expand these and do whatever you want. In here, what do we need to do? Please. Meters equals text meters. That sounds familiar. They're going to be identical. In Unit 4, the commands that you put in these boxes are identical. In Unit 5, that'll change. In Unit 3 and 4, they're identical. So whatever you typed over here, you already thought really hard about it. You put it in a box over here. The only thing you have to think about is what shape box. If you do the flowchart first, you take the text out of the box and you put it on a line by itself. Done. They always parallel each other. They mirror each other exactly. You're learning both because I can't tell which one you're going to use when you get out of here. Next thing, we need to calculate, am I changing the screen? No. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to Command Control Drag. That makes a copy. Remember to push the Command key first, then hold the Control key, then drag, and you'll make a copy. Or you can clipboard, copy paste, whatever you want to do. This box is selected, power tip. I don't have to erase what's in it. Feet equals meters times 3.281. If you put spaces, we talked about spaces. I think Kaya was asking me about, do I need to put spaces on the equal signs and the stars and stuff? In the flowchart, if you put spaces around those, they'll split better when it has to wrap like this. And if you don't like the wrapping, make the box bigger. And then line them up. Notice the alignment arrows or lines, guides. These green ones tell you that they're all the same distance apart. Oh, awesome. What do we do next? Again, I've got this open. I could, if I had a little more screen space in my recording, I would have this open and this on the other side. But there's not much here, so I can just follow. Now I got to calculate the yards. So I'm going to select Command Control Drag again. There's that arrow that says they're the exact same distance apart. Awesome. Select it, start typing. Don't erase it. Yards, wrong program. Yards equals meters, no, feet. This is why you have it open on the other screen. You shouldn't have to think about it. Simply copy it. And yes, I could copy and paste. Now I need to transfer the yards into the labels, into the label. So they're going to change the screen. Yes. So this one's a parallelogram. Right here. Drag it onto the form because I don't have one already. Definitely too high. Shrink it down a little bit. Now notice the green arrows is basically telling me this is the same size as the box up above. Those of your extra anal visuals, Visio will give you lots of ways to be anal. I'm not too concerned about it, though. I do like it when we connect these if the lines are nice and straight. What did we say? LBL, click. LBL yards equals yards. Then what? Then we're done. Okay, so I can grab my end up here and move it down. A little hard for me to do. I'll have to shrink the screen a little bit. There's the good distance apart. The only thing we still have to do is connect these. Flowcharts are connected using arrows so that whoever's looking at it knows which direction to go. In Unit 4, sequential processing, it seems kind of stupid because what direction would you go besides down? But later on, we're going to have forks in the road, and which way do I go, that way or this way? And then there's arrows that go back up, and so get used to putting arrows in. There's a number of ways you can put arrows in. The easiest way is to click on this box, and when you hover on this box, you see the blue arrow? It will connect you to the box underneath. And as long as you hover on the right box, you can just connect right away. Easy to do, gives you an arrow. This is the way you do it. I did discover, oh, that one's not lined up very good. So I'm going to be anal and drag. There we go. Beautiful. And connect. That's a flowchart for a relatively simple sequential processing event handler. Now I've got lots of room on my screen, so I could put button clear on the same page here. But I'm not going to because I want you to get used to using different tabs. In the future, your flowcharts, like bowling, are going to get bigger. And when your flowcharts get bigger, you won't be able to get more than one, maybe two on a page. So what I'm going to recommend you do instead is, first of all, rename this page. Down at the bottom of the screen, it says page 1. And this is just a label for the page, so I'm going to abbreviate. This is button calc. I'm not even going to say button calculate click. It's just a label for my tab. Button calc. I double clicked it, I think, and then typed. To add a new one, plus. Now I got a new page. Let's rename it. Double click. BTN clear. Now what do we got to do? Got to have two terminals, so let's start with that. Notice what happened if you don't zoom manually. If you don't zoom manually, Visio will zoom as you're typing, and then when you're done typing, it zooms back out again. Still kind of small. Button clear underscore click. And notice now it zooms back out. Then I need another one, and I'll type end in there. It zooms in and zooms back out again. That gets annoying to me after a while. If you manually zoom, it'll quit doing that. Every flowchart has a terminal at the beginning and at the end. The end is end, the beginning is the name of the event handler. What do we need to do in here? We already figured it out. It's in the design. Don't think it over again. Here's button clear. We already figured it out. Said clear text meters. What kind of box? Parallelogram, because I'm clearing what's in the text box that's changing the screen. Good. So park that underneath here, and I'm going to say clear text meters, which is what I had in the other one. They should match exactly. The text should, if you're good at cutting and pasting, cut and paste. Can't make a mistake that way. Click. I'm going to drag. You can drag it from here because I only need one more. Or you could control drag. And then the other one was, we said text, no, label. Label yards equals the empty string. Now I've zoomed manually, the automatic zooming stops. I just want you to be able to see what I'm typing. Normally, remember what I said last time, you use either clear or the empty string. You don't mix them in the same flowchart. You don't mix them in the same pseudocode, but I did for demonstration purposes, so I gotta stick with it here so that they match. And according to my design, that's it, end. So again, I bring my end down here, line it up the approved distance. Where is it? There it is. And now let's connect them. Hover, blue arrow, hover, hover, done. We got one more to go. This one's pretty simple, so if you wish, let's do it this time. You can put it on the same page if there's room. Don't squeeze these things and make them ridiculously small. It's real easy to add new tabs down here. You're going to have flowcharts in the future. You're going to have 5 or 6 tabs down here. But for right now, let's just put it on the same page. So I'm going to take this one, command drag it over here, and change clear to exit. You can double click and start editing in here. I also need the end, command drag. Kind of hard to line them up because it's not on the screen. There they are. And now I can go into my design, my pseudocode, and there it says close form, one command. Select what kind of box? To change my screen? Seriously, right? Because the whole program, yes, parallelogram, it changed my screen. So I'm going to steal this. Close the form. I pressed enter, or you can just let it wrap. Hover. Arrows, hover, arrows. Time to save it. I'm going to put it in the same folder with my other stuff, so that's on the desktop. I got to go find it. You can just put yours on the desktop unless you have a meters to yards folder on your desktop. Here's my 2 o'clock folder. Meters to yards. Change the name. Meters to yards. I put FC on it. If you want to write out the word flowchart, go ahead. I use PC for pseudocode, FC for flowchart. I abbreviate those quite frequently on your evaluation sheets. Your FC doesn't match your PC. Oops. Occasionally you'll get your FC doesn't match your SC. Dustin's thinking hard. SC, source code. Your real code doesn't match your design. So you might see those. Now it's in the recording. And now I've saved it. When you submit your part 3, you have to submit 2 things to me. The spreadsheet and the flowchart. Because part 3 is flowchart and test plan. The test plan is going to be in your spreadsheet again. This is the only thing that I leave separate. It's another reason I like pseudocode, because I can get all of my design in the same document. Couldn't I screen snapshot these and paste them? Yeah, for these simple ones, but when they get complex, they're not going to fit. It's going to look gross, so just leave them as a separate document. Send me both. For your Unit 4 programs, you must send me your solution folder and your spreadsheet and your flowchart. That's 3 different things. For 5 and 6, same thing. From now on, when you submit a program to me, you send me the program and the designs so that I can see that they match. Okay, let's do another one. Questions? Okay, I'm going to close this so it's out of my way. You can probably go away too. And I'm going to open up my bowling design. What the heck is that? Is it thinking? Is that what it's doing? Okay, my pseudocode, that's still there. I'm going to restore my window. You don't necessarily have to follow, but this is my guide, right? Because my flowchart is going to use this exact same logic. So I'm going back to Visio. Maybe if you're lucky, Visio is now on your start menu. If not, Microsoft Office 2013 Visio. Flowchart, don't use basic. You don't get the right arrows, and those little blue hover things that we use to connect stuff, they don't show up. So make sure you use a flowchart, the green one. And there's my document. Once again, I'm going to be doing a button calc, a button clear, and a button exit. Could I go to the other flowchart, highlight the button exit, paste it in over here? Absolutely. Can I go steal symbols like button calc and button clear and ends? Absolutely. But let's practice doing these things. Design, basic, terminal. BTN, come on. Calculate, click. Same thing we did before. And I'm going to create an end right away so I don't forget. Could have stolen those from the other flowcharts. This is Visio. Here, we could have opened up our meters to yards flowchart, saved as bowling, and then just changed everything. This isn't Visual Studio. This is Visio. It saves regular old documents. So you can do all your standard save as things and dragging and renaming, etc. It's not Visual Studio is the one with its projects and solutions that causes trouble. All right, what do we got to do? We first have to transfer 4 inputs. And transferring inputs before were rectangles. That's never going to change. This does not change the screen. So I'm going to need 4 rectangles. I'm going to show you a slightly different technique this time. After this. So here I'm saying that my bowling date is equal to the DTP bowling date. Because that's exactly what was over here. There is a different way to create a new shape. When this is done, click off of it and hit the blue and hover, excuse me, come on, hover. And notice it gives me options. You want a new rectangle? And it connects it immediately, so it creates a rectangle and immediately connects it. That's just another way to do it. Just like all good Microsoft products, there's at least 5 different ways to do the same thing. You pick the one that you like. The nice thing about that is it's connected and I get my new shape right away. Score 1 equals text score 1. If you're anal, you could resize it. Create a new one. Score 2. And score 3. Back to my notes for a second. There's a couple of other symbols that you can use in case your flowcharts get long. Now the one we're working on right now is not terribly long yet, but I want to demonstrate these 2 symbols to you for longer flowcharts that you're definitely going to have, because your flowcharts for meters to yards can be pretty complex, right? Because you got, what, 8 inputs? That's a page right there. These are called connectors. There's 2 kinds. This is an on-page connector, meaning you'll find this twin on this same page. There'll be a circle with an A in it, then another circle with an A in it someplace, and that just means jump from here to there. With Visio, it's legal to draw this big, huge monster line that goes from the bottom of the page to the top of the page. That's gross. Use a connector. If your flowchart's so huge that it doesn't even fit on a page, you can use one of these, kind of a home plate symbol, and it gives the page number and then the letter, and I should find another home plate symbol on page 2 with the letter A in it. These you hardly need anymore. Let me show you why. Off page. Unless you're printing. Right. But let me show you one of the new features of Visio. Watch what happens when I drag this off the page. It creates another page. Cool. So you could create this big, huge monster flowchart in one tab that spans 6 different pages, easy to do, and when you print them, it'll look just like that. Right. So if you really need a long flowchart, or a big flowchart, doesn't even fit on a page, just span over to the next page. Let's pretend, however, that we're hitting the bottom of the page here, and we want to just start another column and continue our logic. I'm going to bring in the connector, just a circle. And you put some symbol inside there. And some people last year get creative and they put stars and happy faces and things there. I don't care what it is. I like A. And then I'm going to control drag this, command control drag this to make a copy of it because there needs to be a twin. I'm going to attach, so I'm going to hover on this box and attach it. You can do like we did in the first one, make all the symbols and then attach them. Or you can make a symbol, attach it, make a symbol, attach it, or make a new symbol and attach at the same time like I just showed you. All different ways to do this. Bring this up near the top now because I'm going to continue. Now what do I need to do? I need to calculate the series. I'm going to use the triangle and a rectangle. There we go. Series. I'm going to figure out this typing thing. Series equals score 1 plus score 2 plus score 3. When it wraps, let it wrap. If you want to make it bigger because it looks better to you, make it bigger. But I am not terribly concerned about it as long as it doesn't wrap in the middle of a word someplace. You can also move these shapes using the arrow keys. You usually get a little finer control. I'm left and right arrowing right now. Where'd that come from? Right out of my spreadsheet. I've been talking about cutting and pasting, you know what, this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to add a new box. Hover. Oops. Darn. Hover. Rectangle. Now, maybe you can't do this because you don't have your spreadsheet open. If you can't, you're going to have to type it. It's no big deal. You could actually steal most of that. But I'm going to show you that I can go over here, highlight this box. Don't you need all of that? No. Glad I did this. In spreadsheets, this entire formula, this entire pile of text is stored in cell B8. Look up here. It's the whole thing. What's stored in B9? Nothing. In all spreadsheets, when you type something in a box, if it doesn't fit, it spills over to the cells next door as long as they're empty. So if I want to copy this, all I have to do is select that one cell, press Control C, come over here, click in the box, press Control V. Oops. Let's try it inside the box. There we go. Font's a little too big, so there's the downside. Now I'd have to figure out what this font is. You know what? I'm just going to retype it. Wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be because the font changed on me. Wait a minute. Can I put that back in there again? No. I'll try one more time because I'm looking to see Control V. Are there any paste options? No. Microsoft Word, there's paste options, and I can say don't format it. Keep the local formatting, but I don't have that option here. So one more time, I'm going to type it. Maybe. Average equals score 1 plus score 2. Remember, it's got to match. If you decide there's a better way to do this here, then you better go change your pseudocode because they should match. And yes, remember that's a mistake, right? Because we're not thinking about order of precedence. I'm just going to use it as a demonstration of order of precedence later. Next box. Undo, because I keep picking the wrong one. Square. Next bowling date. Equals the bowling date plus 14 days. Pretty sure that's what I have in my design. Let me double check. Next bowling date plus 14 days. Questions so far? Trevor?
How do you make Visio stop auto-capitalizing the first word?
All right. For those of, and mine's not doing it, right? Why is yours doing it? I believe, and you should all ask me this, how do we get it to stop capitalizing? Because that's annoying, right? First of all, you could undo and fix it. And if this is a capital S, guess who's going to mark it wrong? That evil instructor of yours. I believe it's under File, Options, Proofing, Autocorrect. You might remember when we did this in LibreOffice Calc, it was under Autocorrect, but it was under Tools, Options. Autocorrect, capitalize the first letter of your sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me. Okay, let's pretend our page is full. Let's make another connector. I'm going to steal this one. Actually, if I watch this, if I touch the triangles, come on. By default, it wants a circle because that's the last thing I manually added, or I can pick one of those other 4 things. Well, that's what I want. So we'll take that circle. This time I'm going to put a B in it. I can't have 2 sets of connectors with the same letter. This one I'm going to copy to the clipboard. Control C. Does it have to be uppercase? No. Remember, it can be a smiley face. So lowercase, uppercase, I don't care. As long as the twin matches. Go to the top of the page. Move some stuff around. Paste. Oh, man. Copy. Have to hit it harder, maybe. Paste. There we go. Line it up with its buddy. And now what do I have to do? Back to my pseudocode. I have to display the series, the average, and the next bowling date. Those are displays, so I'm changing the screen. LBL series equals the series. I'm pretty sure if I touch the triangle, it's going to give me another one of these. Yep. LBL average equals the average. And there we also put a comment, and we can do the same thing here in parentheses 1 decimal. Triangle gives me another one. LBL next bowling date. Whoa, notice that's wrapping in the middle of the object name. That's not good. I'm going to have to stretch this one. Equals the next bowling date. That's wrapping too. So this is not acceptable to me because that's very hard to read. Select the box and stretch it. Whoa. Does it make you crazy to see crooked arrows up there? I hope so. It makes me crazy to see it on yours. Not enough to mark it wrong, but you will lower my opinion of you if you give me bent arrows. Not much. Not at all. I'm kidding. Be anal. Make it look good. There's my button calc. Now I look at it from a distance. Looks like I got a bent arrow there. I don't even have an arrow here, so I got a little bit of tweaking to do. Nope, it's not bent. Just looked like it. That's button calc. Change the page name. It's page 1 to BTN calc. Add a page for clear. If you do not name those tabs, I will mark it wrong. Because page 1, page 2 is about as good as variable name label 1 and label 2. You have the option of labeling these, so it's very easy to figure out which one's which. Drag a terminal, drag another terminal, zoom in is what I'm going to do. BTN clear, click, and now I'm really going to put them side by side because I don't want to get the order wrong, and I think I can see them both here. When I clear, of course this one I can hardly figure out how to scroll. Let's do this. First thing I'm supposed to clear is this, then set the bowling. Does this one change the screen? Probably. Anytime you're clearing, it's all changing the screen. Name doesn't fit, so let's stretch it. I'm control dragging it, just not very well. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit too. I'm starting to run out of room, so I'm going to add a connector. You got lots of room, then don't. Notice here I'm using an A again because this is an on-page connector. It's the first time that I'm using A on this page. If you want to, call it C. Doesn't really matter because you're never going to see it from a different page.
Volker?
Yeah.
In the TXT scores things, are they supposed to be equal to empty string?
To the empty string?
Yeah, I thought.
Yes.
They might be up in Flowcharts.
What did I do? Oh, because I made a mistake. Thank you.
Are they the scores, the TXT scores?
Yeah, these should be empty strings here. And I'm also going to copy this and do a button exit, even though hardly worth the effort. But it's required. If I don't do it, you won't do it. Figured that out a long time ago. I waited quite a while to save that. You might have been wiser to save it earlier. But I was lucky didn't lose it. All right, if you're not done yet, pause for just a second. Let me finish the notes so I can finish the recording. Later on, we're going to add a diamond. You won't need it in Unit 3 or 4. That's for decisions, and it's for loops. All right, so that will show up later, and I'll show it to you in those units when we need it. Few rules: one output per box. Couldn't I just put one big box and say do this, this, and this? Could. That's not my rule, so one output per box. Lines should have arrows pointing in the right direction. If you're abbreviating, you might include a legend. Yeah, maybe. So not too many rules. Pretty much one command per box. It's a little annoying sometimes, but that's our rule. One other thing. On my website, there is a set of instructor's notes for Visio. Where'd they go? Under handouts, probably. Here's Visio instructions. I've given you about all the instruction I'm going to give you in Visio because that's all I'm going to ask you to do. Create tabs. But some of you want to get more creative. Add shadows to your boxes and put your names in here and put background wallpaper, yeah, whatever. Here's some instructions on how to do that. And there's no recording. You shouldn't need it. It's pretty straightforward. So if you want to become a Visio expert, there's some instructions. Really all you need from me is what we did today. Create boxes, link them together, type text in them. That's all you need. Create tabs. Questions about flowcharts? All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about test plans.